Happy Monday, guys. So it's your usual Marketing Monday Live, moved to a new format of Facebook and YouTube. So please remember to set your clocks. I saw a lot of people jumping onto Instagram. I was doing my live video now, and I noticed a lot of people joining live via Instagram. We've changed the format so that you can actually speak to our guests that join us live, and actually get a chance to ask them questions via YouTube or Facebook. What you need to do is, if you're watching this live, post your comments in the comment section down below for our guest. And for those of you who are new to Marketing Monday, my name's Liezel, and how this started is at the start of lockdown in South Africa. We went into lockdown in March. As a way of helping small businesses grow, I used to host a Marketing Monday Live where I would answer your marketing related questions. I'd teach you about LinkedIn, personal branding, and a whole lot of social media skills, as well as presenting skills. And I thought, now that we're in level 2 in South Africa, I know the rest of the world have probably gone into level 1, let's actually get guests to give us first-hand marketing and business related tips. So if you're joining from anywhere in the world, post your comment and let me know where you're watching from. I'm seeing Kathy Luthwaite watching from Bloberg in Cape Town. Thanks for joining and thanks for the message. Type a comment out. I'm able to see YouTube and Facebook comments, so feel free to say hi, Liezel. Feel free to say where you're watching from, and then don't be scared to ask our guests a question. There's no such thing as a stupid question when it comes to growing your business, growing your brand, and learning more about yourselves. So please go ahead, say hi, let me know where you're watching from. I see a number of people watching via YouTube. I'm seeing some people watching via Facebook. Just post the comment section down below. Belinda van Viering saying, hi, Liezel, I'm watching from Durbanville in Cape Town. I've just actually come from there, Belinda. I was shooting a new show, and I rushed from set to come to be able to shoot in my home studio with good signal to be able to bring you the best quality with our guest. And then I'm heading back. So you'll see I'm half in sneakers, half in a blue dress. You'll see it a little bit later on. Zarina, hi from Cape Town in the southern suburbs. Tony, great to see you here as well. Thank you so much for watching live. Our guest today, I'm very excited, has a product that's available globally, 16 countries globally, a South African brand, an incredible woman who has been an air hostess, who's been a deputy mayor, a marketing manager, just carries on with a list of incredible accolades and incredible jobs that she's held. So we're going to ask our guest all about starting out, all about how her business started out. And then, of course, you get a chance to ask those questions as well. Please put virtual hands together while you're at home for our guest today. It's Lorna Scott, the CEO of Inverroche Gin Distilleries here in South Africa, in the Western Cape. Welcome her to our Marketing Monday Live. Lorna, really great to have you with us live today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Liezel. Happy to be here.
So we've got a number of viewers watching from all over the world on YouTube and Facebook. And what I'll do is I'll give them a chance to ask questions. They'll type it in the comment box and we'll get to questions at the end of our chat. But let's just kick it off. I want to ask you, I know you started out producing gin, but at the time you started out, gin was a very niche market in South Africa and in the world. And you could have easily gone with brandy or a beer or a whiskey. Why did you actually start a gin range?
It's kind of like most things. There were different thoughts and different ideas that eventually converged. But at the base of all of this, I need to give you context. And that is that at the time when the idea started to sort of germinate, I was still working as a politician. I was the deputy mayor for the local municipality. And I was busy with a number of projects which were local economic development projects as well, which involved predominantly working with groups of previously disadvantaged women in the local area. And they were all recipients of land, of farms, etc. And it was a real struggle to find ways of assisting them to grow things that would be able to produce an income in the future. So that was the one thing. And at the same time, being in politics, there was this, the biggest problem for us really was unemployment, to find ways of creating employment opportunities. My background being in marketing, the sort of three ideas came together that we needed to find something that would be a quick, shall we say, solution, And tourism was the first thing that came to mind that didn't require, specific skills that would be able to do. But what assets did we have to create tourism industry? And at the same time, I was working with these groups of previously disadvantaged women. Then I discovered that the biggest assets that we have in this municipality was basically two things. We have this archaeological resource, as it were, of all of these ancient artifacts that indicate that this is the origin of modern man. And the other wonderful link to that is that one of the key factors that contributed to that survival was the availability of this abundant resource called fynbos. Now, for those of you who don't know what fynbos is, it refers to this unique floral kingdom, the Cape Floral Kingdom, that is the smallest biome of all 6 floral biomes on the entire planet, and the richest and the most diverse. And the plants that grow here, and fynbos, by the way, means very fine-leafed aromatic plants, are the very plants that played such an incredible role in our survival, 150,000 years ago. And with these 2 extraordinary discoveries, I started to put 2 and 2 together. Now, your question about how did this end up in gin is it went quite a route. I first thought, how can I use these ingredients to create something that would both become an attraction in terms of tourism, but also that possibly could create a new industry. And I experimented with making perfume, because these are the most extraordinary, aromatic plants. And then I thought, well, I like gin. Let's start thinking about making gin. The reason for this is that gin is the only alcohol product that doesn't get its flavor from the alcohol itself. You start off by using a neutral spirit that could be anything. It's basically vodka, that you then redistill and you infuse other plant material like juniper berries, which people would be familiar with. And in this case, I thought, why not infuse these extraordinary edible plants that we've been using for millennia and make gin? So does that answer your question? Why make brands when you could do something exciting?
And you basically paved the way for the craft gin industry in South Africa, if I can put it that way and give you that compliment, because so many people have followed in your footsteps.
That's right. I mean, there's something like almost 400 or more different local brands now. And I mean, that's only since we launched it in December 2011. So it's not taken very long to, from nothing. I think there were 2 of us in the first year, me and Jan Jorgensen's, and then, with exploded. And the most amazing thing, people often ask, aren't I annoyed because there's so many copycat gins and other people also making fynbos? But what, that you always need to think from a marketing perspective that, one swallow doesn't make a summer. And in order for you to open up a whole new category in an industry that was really quite boring and staid, it needs a lot of choice and it needs innovation. And what's happened is that most of these new gin brands have started to explore their own backyards, in Natal, in KwaZulu-Natal, all over, the Free State, Gauteng, everywhere. Gin brands have, popped up using new ingredients. And so it's just really created this amazing interest in gin, all things gin.
I love how positive you are and how supportive you are of uplifting other brands and saying other competitive gin brands, because you're all in the industry together and you're all competing for a market share. But just hearing you say that you're so excited seeing all these brands pop up and seeing everyone trying to create something unique. The nice thing about that is it's not just about creating the gin, it's creating job employment as well, and getting jobs for people who previously wouldn't be able to have been employed. So that's also the exciting thing. And you've got a fairly strong female base employees. How did that come about?
There's 2 answers to that one. And I'm going to start off with a probably more controversial one, which is that women are just better at being careful, attention to detail. loyal. And, at the heart of all of this, there's a fundamental element that is so unique to Africa, not just South Africa. And that is that women really are the bedrock of society and in our economy as well. They're the ones who are the most loyal. They're the ones who tend to be the heads of households, particularly in rural areas, because men tend to leave to go to, the metros to look for other employment. So they stay behind and they've got the children and they've got, 2 or 3 generations to care for. So women have a very different work ethic. There's not just loyalty to the job, there's also loyalty in terms of working with their in generations. In my business, for example, I've got 2 to 3 generations, all employed mothers,
Wow.
grandmothers, aunts, daughters, and we've had a few babies born over the lockdown as well. Hopefully they will also eventually come into the story. But I think the female element of my business right from the word go was key, not just in the way that we do our business now, but in the origin story. I touched on this, and I think from a marketing perspective, there's a real lesson to be learned in when you find inspiration, to stay true to that inspiration, whatever you do going forward. And the story that I discovered was not just about our origin and why we survived here, but it was specifically about the role of women in antiquity. We were the first scientists. We were the ones when the men were out there, hunting a lion or a buffalo. They might not even come home with anything other than a rabbit, for a whole week. The women were out every day foraging. Mm-hmm. They went out and they discovered not only the plants and were able to distinguish between 2 blooms that may look the same, but one is poisonous and the other one is edible. It was about discovery. It was about communication. They were the first healers, the first chefs, and the first scientists, and really responsible for our survival at the heart of all of this. Female forward for me has always been such an extraordinary discovery and a story that needed to be shared. So I hope that answers your question. Woman power, I'm sorry, all the way.
I love that, especially because it is Women's Month. So it's a really powerful message. But now tell me, when you first came up with the idea of gin, did you not have any naysayers? You always have those friends or family members or colleagues going, no, it will never work. Did that ever happen in your case? And how did you overcome that negativity that ends up in your mind?
I think there has to be something that is core to starting a brand. Not only, as I've mentioned, being true to your inspiration, but also to your vision. And I envisaged this brand to be, this like a perfume. It needed to sit like a perfume, and it needed to be something that was aromatic and powerful in all the aspects of what it looks like and also taste. And so during that experimental years, which were about 3 or 4 years when I, worked with a little baby pot still to develop the recipes, it was clear that one of the things that was just so obvious to me is that by infusing your botanicals, both in the distillation process and post-distillation to capture the aromatic components, gave my gins, a color. And at that point, there were no gins that weren't see-through anywhere in the world. And they just looked so amazing. So I thought, to hell with this. I'm not going to filter the color out. I'm going to leave it as it is. And so one of the first issues I ended up with was one of the very popular and well-known distributors or retail outlets in Cape Town. I went to my 3 bottles of gin under the arm and said, please, put this on your shelf. And he said, oh, nobody's ever going to buy this brown gin. So there was an instant, rejection of something that was unusual, made with plants that nobody had ever used before. But I knew that it was going to work because I had this amazing support system, not only in Stillbay, but, all my friends. And they were always willing to come and test the latest iteration over those 3 years. and, to give comment. And I could tell from their faces always, yeah, this is it. And so, that belief, and when you find something that is good, and you need to trust your own judgment. So despite all the misgivings, nobody drinks gin, nobody will drink brown gin. I see you've got one there you showed me earlier, specifically the amber. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, the brown gin.
So you can see. Yeah,
so
and I had a full bottle on Friday. My fiance got hold of it.
All right, let's get them in. Okay. Yeah, so that's basically it. Stick to your guns. You know it's right. Don't let anybody dissuade you.
That's really good business advice. But I love the story, the part of you saying you actually had your bottle of gin under the arm, and you yourself went to various bottle stores when you started out. You hit the ground running and knocking, basically cold calling. What lessons did you learn through that experience?
I think it teaches you to be very tenacious and to learn to go back. And I think there's somebody once told me, for every 10 no's, you're going to get one yes. And every time you get, no, don't want this, just keep going, because you count them down, 1, 2, 3, 4, here we go, you get a yes. And those are the ones that really matter. And I mean, I had 3, it was at that point, Woolworths was still stocking spirits. They had 3 or 4 stores in Cape Town. They were one of the first ones, and Norman Goodfellows in Joburg that did, and the Wimmy I just mentioned, which was will remain nameless, but still a big store. So with those 3, it started, but in the end, the biggest success for me was the brand home in Stolbay. And despite the fact that it's literally in the middle of nowhere, it's a bit like, I don't know, people often ask, why did you do it in Stolbay? Well, first of all, this is where I discovered the resource and the story, and this is where we are. But I suppose it's a bit of an approach like Walt Disney, if you build it, they will come. And they did. And Stolbay has this little fascinating dynamic where it's only got about 3 to 5,000 people who live there permanently, and during the holidays it goes up to 50 or 70,000 people, and they come from everywhere, Gauteng, Cape Town. So there's not much to do when the weather goes horrid, which it often does, and you've been to the beach and you've been fishing. What will you do now? Let's go drink gin. So they come to the distillery and they end up discovering this, unique product that they love, and then they become the disciples and they take it away with them. So me running around with my bottles under the arm didn't need to go on for too much longer, because people really took the bottles with them, and that's how we grew even the overseas market. It was absolutely, totally as a result of word of mouth. So, I'd get a phone call from Singapore or from, Germany or wherever, and somebody say, I got this as a gift or got this as a present. How do I stock this? What do I need to do? And that's how the business grew. So word of mouth is the only way.
Very, very vital. Word of mouth. But this being said, how important is social media when it comes to your business and your brand?
Well, with COVID, as everybody knows, I mean, here we are as a prime example, talking to each other over, the internet, has taught us a great deal. And I think it's a brilliant opportunity to, on the one hand, there's a lot to regret because, in a way, particularly those businesses that have not survived this time, which in our industry really relied very heavily on our own consumption. That would be bars and restaurants and so on, gin bars. And so many have gone out of business. But the nature of engagement with the end consumer via our on-consumption clients was kind of the only way that you engaged in the past. This has now forced us to be creative and innovative. And we've come up with some astonishing things. My team has just been amazing. We now do gin tastings, and we even run gin schools through the internet with virtual reality. What they've been doing is we put together like a special little box, and we send this out for special occasions where we do a master class, and I would, for example, present a gin school or a special tasting with one of the gins, and then you would receive your glass and your gin and all of the bits and pieces that go with it, your zester, etc. And then on the day, we all Zoom in and we do a masterclass while you make your own gin over there and I make mine here. And it can get quite hectic when you get to, number 3, and we're now can we do yet another cocktail? So it's good fun, but you've learned to interact. And I think the big benefit of this is that you're able to now really make contact directly with your end consumer. And it's much more personal. And I think it creates much more trust and authenticity, because you can, pretend otherwise. This is you, and there's you, and this is it. It's an instant, authentic relationship, which is great.
Let's talk about the town of Stilbaai. How has COVID affected that town and tourism? And have you opened your doors? I know you can't trade on a weekend, but have you opened your doors for customers weekdays?
We have. We are actually open on the weekends as well, although we aren't allowed to sell, because under the under the new regulations, people are actually allowed to come along and have enjoy a cocktail and a gin and tonic, but we can't sell. Yeah, but we can't sell. So the first day we were open, usually we don't open the cocktail lounge till 11 o'clock. 9 o'clock we had cars already outside in the parking area. It was so cool. So we obviously in a situation where the lack of experiences at the distillery is an issue. So we now have to reschedule that, and people are not here always during the week. They used to come over weekends. So it's a learning curve for us still, but I mean, it's just been brilliant that we at least, have been able to open again. But there's been many casualties, the sad thing with all of this, as I've mentioned, it's not only been the on consumption, but if you think about the whole value chain, and basically, even though Inverroche is here in Stilbaai, and we have, we employ about 70 odd people, and there is an ecosystem that starts right here, which is very local, but it also extends beyond that. And people often forget it's not the direct things only. It's not just the people who make bottles. It's not just the people who make the labels. It's the transport companies. Now, we use a local transport company. And they are, they're not going to be able to continue with their business because of the period, the 5 odd months. Even though we were allowed to export, the stock went from warehouses that were already in Cape Town. So, there was no business at all. So, where they rely predominantly on us as a service provider to us, without, us being able to, be part of that ecosystem and the knock-on effect of all of that. So there was very little recognition for the bigger impact. And again, as I say, bear in mind that most of the companies here have women employees, and there are so many that are, single parents and heads of household. So that's recognizing that it's not just direct on you, but the full value chain.
And not enough is being actually said about the full value chain. Whenever you read about businesses, or you read the Financial Times or any of the newspapers that come out, no one actually promotes or talks about the knock-on effect and the smaller people along the chain that were affected. So I'm so glad you mentioned that. And is there any advice or tips for people whose business has been affected by that knock-on effect? How do they get themselves back on their feet? How do they take that next step?
I think the first thing is that you need to really interrogate your business model. I think this is also an opportunity for you to consider that the success of small businesses depend very, very much on local support. And supporting local is a key element, I think, of survival going forward. Now, in our case, I have had to focus on my export market because during this time, at least exports could continue. And there were other challenges, which, I can talk about in a moment. But to get to your question is that my new business model, my evolution from where we were to where we are now, that I believe will be the cornerstone of our success going forward, is to go 100% local. And that requires me to evaluate where I buy my bottles from, where I import my corks from, etc., to come up with new ideas to create business opportunities. For example, to create my own bottles, whether they, whatever they're made from or how they're made. Why don't we start a company or a joint venture and set up something here in Stilbaai or in South Africa somewhere? So that, and of course, there's always the advantage of the, the exchange rate in South Africa, as you know, is not doing so well at the moment. Yeah. So my advice is to start looking creatively at how you can improve your profitability, but at the same time address those key elements which must be combined, which is people, the planet, and that must also have a profit element. And if those three can, go hand in hand, it has to, have a positive impact on creating a more sustainable model going forward.
I absolutely love that. I saw a comment that came through a little bit earlier. I'm just going through the comment section there. I also had a question, going through it now to try and find it, just stating that the people element is something that you keep bringing up the whole time. Carl Reich says, I love the comment on visual confirmation, and that's so on point, as well as your people factor, which is one of your main points. And you just brought up people factor, profit, and planet, the 3 Ps. And the planet and people one often gets forgotten when it comes to profit. So that's just a comment coming through. I'm going to jump to some questions here. Class in session says, is there anything wrong with unginning gin by making cocktails with it? I'm not a fan of alcohol that's too sweet, but sometimes in Cape Town, people make me feel bad for mixing my gin, or as always she says, bastardizing by mixing my gin. We don't judge. This is the nice thing about Marketing Monday. No one judges.
No one judges. Look, it depends on, what you're going to add to it. If you're going to add Coca-Cola to my gin, I will not be a happy bunny. But, there's a wonderful history with gin in particular of being paired with tonic. And there's actually, at a molecular level, there's a symbiosis that takes place between the ingredients that are predominant in gin, which is juniper, and, the ingredients that define your tonic. That the bitterness and the subtle sweetness, and you get so many really good tonics now that do not use sugar, but that have, alternative sweetness, that, just it lifts the body of the character of the gin. So the two work beautifully together. The key to all of this is, and I think that, this is something you should write down, know this, that if you want to get the best balance and not bastardize your gin, make sure you get the ratio right. And the first thing is that it needs to be 1 part gin and 2 parts tonic, no more than that. And the most important other element is, please do not put slices of lemon ever into your gin tonic. You're going to just ruin all my hard work, because the citric acid in the slice of lemon or whatever you're putting in there literally separates those beautiful rich oils, which is combined in a distillation and an infusion process. All you must ever do is just take the rind, just the zest, nice curl of, lemon, orange, whatever citrus you've got at hand, drop that in there. Those oils will mingle with the oils that are present in your gin, and the whole experience will completely change your engagement with the gin. But so no slices of lemon, and don't drown the poor gin with the tonic. Lots of ice also helps. So
I hope that answers your question. Here's one from Vusi saying, it must be very humbling to see people love your brand in different countries. Which market surprised you the most regarding your reaction to your product, their reaction to your product?
A wonderful question. I think America probably. We only sort of went into America not long before the lockdown. It was in December, so we had a launch in America, and I have to do a bit of name dropping here, but it was really cool because we were invited. Let's drop it. We were invited by Charlize Theron to support one of her fundraisers for her charity, her Africa Outreach Project, and so I happened to get on the stage with her in New York. It was like, yay, look, who I am. And why I'm telling you this is that we had an opportunity because we ran our first big gin bar there with all these celebrities and engaging with them. And the fascinating response has always been somewhere in this discussion, they want to know what makes this gin taste so amazing. And so you get that opening to start talking about the ingredients and the history of, all people come from the southern tip of Africa and, we're one big tribe. And it's like, whoa, and this is gin, so the response in America has really been the most, I think, surprised because, first of all, they don't really drink gin. It's not a big thing yet. I see aviation is now sold for some astonishing amount of money there recently, so maybe that will open the interest even more. So it's first of all the discovery in America that has been so, I think, intrigued is the best word. Where in Europe, people are used to gin, and so they are more interested in the flavor profile and the methods of making. Here, it's just about what is this stuff. So I think that's been the best for me so far.
I've got a question here from Joanne James saying, what's Lorna's top tip for female entrepreneurs?
Ooh, I could be here for you. This is a whole interview for us question.
This is separately. We're going to have to get you back.
I think so, for sure. For female entrepreneurs, I think I'm part of a network, by the way, called the Lionesses of Africa. And I would highly recommend that anybody who's a female entrepreneur in Africa should go onto the website. It's just called Lionesses for Africa, and explore being one of them. There are almost, I think it's 1.3 million of us now that are represented out of 53 countries throughout Africa. And I think one of the reasons for the success of this network is precisely that, supporting each other, learning lessons from within this larger network. And we all have, our own unique issues, but there is a platform where you don't feel so alone. And I think for female entrepreneurs, it's so important to know that, you always feel as if this is the first time, that anybody has had these issues. And in my case, when I moved into this industry, there were just no women, really in making gin. Now, out of those 400 odd different brands I mentioned earlier, a significant number of these are brand owners, are women, but also involved in, in different parts of this industry. So it's about not feeling alone and knowing that, as I've said in the beginning, that you can do it just as well, if not better than any man can. And it's not about competing with them, but it's being able to hold your own. And when you feel alone, speak to other women that are also on the same path, to claim our rightful place in the world.
That's such brilliant advice, Joanne. Thank you for asking that really great question. If anyone had missed the question and you tuned in too late, that was Joanne's question asking what's Lorna's top tip for female entrepreneurs. Join the Lionesses for Africa. We will post their contact website URL in the comment section below. Lorna, I can't believe it's just over 30 minutes. We've been chatting and there's so many more questions I'd love to ask you. We've really learned a lot from you this Marketing Monday and we really value your time. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's absolutely my pleasure. And cheers. And remember the tips will make a good gin and tonic.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That was Lorna Inverroche Gin. Here we go. This is what it looks like. This is what it looked like when my fiance got hold of it on the weekend. And really great having Lorna join us and just answer business related questions. Even if you don't drink, It's great business advice that she did share with us today. We'll post her contact details down below as well, so you can go and give them a follow. Really valuable marketing and business advice today. And for those of you new to Marketing Monday, it happens every Monday at noon South African time. It's 2 p.m. Dubai time. And you can post any questions to our guests, and we post it to our guests and ask them live. And this is just a way to help businesses, help you as an entrepreneur, help you as a business owner, just to grow and learn basically anything that's related to business and your personal brand as well. So we'll catch you again next week for Marketing Monday live on YouTube and Facebook at Liezel Online. If you've got any questions, if you're worried about something that I guess said and you didn't get a chance to ask a question, please feel free to post it in the comment section below. For those of you who are not watching this live, we will get to those questions as well. See you next Monday. Have a great Monday, guys, and a great week. Be successful.